It's Friday.
It's Friday.
We almost didn't make it through the week.
Mm,
We've come down with an illness.
we've got a slight cold. We were in bed all day
I feel
yesterday.
like it was a little bit of like a mixture of like flu, cold type thing because I had like the body aches.
Yeah, body aches, even down to like sick tummy feels. It was
hmm
kind of just an all over, but I feel like we got through it quickly because we allowed our bodies to shut down.
I don't think I've done that in a really long time. Like I stayed in bed with you the entire day
It
from like
felt
like all
phenomenal
day.
and so needed.
I like experienced this moment where I felt like really, really safe being closed up in our room with like everything that's going on in the world. There's so many like very tragic events happening right now and all very triggering in many ways. And I think emotionally, I was at my tipping point of like, feeling like why am I doing this every day? Why show up every day when everything else around us is crumbling? And I think that's a normal feeling to have
Well, and I
when
even told you you were like feeling guilty about not going in. And I told you, like, with how crazy the world is, like, it's okay to give yourself a day of rest. Like,
yeah.
shit, our bodies they tucker out at some point.
Yeah, I was definitely not feeling well, and sometimes it's hard for me to like stop and recognize what my body is telling me to do. And I'm very proud of myself for just listening and allowing myself to shut down and not look at a screen.
Yeah.
Really.
I feel like it's also a good tester. Like, if you can spend all day in bed with your significant other and not get sick of it and want to do it again the next day, then you're doing good.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
We even made pancakes for dinner
At
late
like
at night, late
9
late at
p.m.
night, and I do the fun fact, I don't like pancakes in the morning. Pancakes to me are too heavy. I don't like to eat very heavy meals in the morning. And so if I eat pancakes, the only way I can eat them and like truly enjoy them to the fullest extent is to know that I can crawl into bed right afterwards.
Which we
So
did.
it's either like a hangover type of deal. You wake up in the morning knowing you're going to spend the day back in bed, or you save it for the evening and do like a Brenner, is what we call it in our house.
Yeah, Brenner. It's always good.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about a comment that came through on TikTok.
Yes. We were deciding whether or not to respond. And you know what? It's a deeper topic that we want to bring here because I don't think we necessarily have all the answers.
No, we
So,
very quickly realized this morning, like, we could use a lot of education in this area,
yeah.
or at least I know I could.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
Okay, so a little preface. The video that I created was about your pronouns.
hmm
They, them, someone commented and asked me how it is that you can go by they, them, but let me or feel comfortable with me addressing you as my wife,
hmm
which most everyone listening right now knows we're not married, obviously, but we have decided that that's like a term that we're
It's
both,
lesbian math, you guys.
yeah, we're
Like
both comfortable
it's
with it. I sound so sick, like congested.
yeah. If you hear a sniffle, just allow it.
um so I was just explaining like that every different couple is going to have a different level of comfortability, and like every non-binary person is going to have a different level of what terms are okay versus what are not. So one of the comments that came through on that video was, it's kind of long, so bear with me. It says, how would it work if Kirby at some point came to the conclusion that they may be trans? It took time for each of you to get to this point. I remember when both of you were learning, and I've enjoyed watching the growth in both of you. I celebrated when you came together. I'm just curious. Also grew up super religious, claimed my lesbianism to the world, but if my wife wanted to become a man, I'd have no other choice than to have a husband because at the end of the day, I love the person she is, not just her gender. And I just think that like the way that she worded the question was really good, really respectful, and genuinely like curious.
Yeah. One key thing is like we're not done learning. We're never done learning.
No
So
one's ever
like
done learning.
so we don't have all of the answers, but I will say I kind of want to hear your point of view and then allow me to speak on some things.
Yeah. I also want to say, like, before I say anything about it, I don't want to offend anybody in any way because, again, it all goes back to preference, individual preference, and then relationship preference. But I told you a little bit yesterday, like when we first started dating, that we were very um, open in the communication of, I am very proud to be a lesbian. I don't want to be seen as a straight woman. I don't even want to be like, I don't even like introducing myself in a way that could be mistaken for, oh, Ember's with a man. So that was something I told you from the get-go of like, I like that you have enough feminine qualities that when we're in public, like, you're not seen as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we first started dating and had some of those very beginning conversations, had you expressed that transitioning was even remotely an idea for you, that would have been like, that would have been a red flag for me personally. Not that there's anything wrong with transitioning, but for
Like more
me,
like not red flag, but like more like a deal breaker.
it would have not even, I don't want to say it would have been a complete deal breaker. It would have just been something that in my mind would have been like, keep this in the back of your
Mm.
mind that this person is interested in doing something that you know you're not going to be attracted to
Mm-hmm.
or want to be with.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to sound like, because I mean I have so much respect for trans people, but I personally would not want to be with someone that transitioned, because then I mean the whole point is that they want to transition into a man, like, and I don't want to be with a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where I stand with it.
No, and I think that was definitely conversations that we had. We have, and this goes back to back when we had some acquaintances that we met through TikTok where they were kind of putting, you know, there's a whole thing about gatekeeping and there's a whole thing about like just pushing.
Pushers. Fucking
And
pushers.
I will say, before I even came out as a lesbian and I was strictly identifying as a bisexual female woman, I had people in my life that I met through TikTok trying to push me out as a lesbian even sooner. And that was an ick for me. Like I needed to discover everything on my own, with myself, and allow that to come to light with Tommy. Those were like my two important things, right? And so um when I came out non-binary and then came out lesbian, and all of a sudden people started saying like, well, now that you're non-binary, how long before you transition? How long before you transition?
And if I can say, that was also kind of at the same time that you cut your hair. So a lot of
Yes.
people were
Yes.
immediately like, oh, now they cut their hair. Now they're non binary. Now they're talking about possible top surgery and how they'd be. And so it was like snowballing into this,
Mm-hmm.
like, Kirby's going to transition. And
Right.
people straight up said, like, Kirby is going to transition, as if it was like their choice for you
Mm-hmm.
or their little magic 8 ball.
Yeah. I think that something that I have to remind myself and remind others is that saying like I identify non-binary, that was something that was always on the inside of me that I never shared with anybody. I never said it out loud because I really didn't understand, because I didn't have that representation growing up as far as like what non-binary means.
Right.
But considering myself, categorizing myself as a tomboy my whole entire life, and how I felt inside, not connected to one or the other, I finally was able to say it out loud. So just because I said it with short hair doesn't mean I wasn't, way before anybody else could even tell, when I was still wearing a dress, when I still had long hair, when I still was playing the role that I felt people connected with me the easiest or something. That was the role I was playing, but I felt non-binary on the inside all along my whole entire life.
Right.
So just because I'm saying it out loud now 40 years later, it's not like I'm like, now what's the next step, for me. Non-binary is so much deeper and way past this end point of you've reached your destination, now you're a man.
Right.
I don't have a desire to be a man. I don't have a strong desire to be a woman. I love and appreciate my womanhood and my ability to carry and birth my children, like I will never step down from that. That was a probably one of my biggest accomplishments in my entire life, was having an unmedicated natural birth.
Mm-hmm.
And my body is amazing and it did amazing things. I don't want to change myself to be recognized as a man. I take just as much um uh like I love being recognized, even though I feel non-binary. I love being recognized as two ladies from a stranger when we're going into a restaurant,
Right.
and they're like, right, with, where they're sitting us at our table or something, and they're like, okay, ladies, with that, like, I would rather be seen that way, so that way people do recognize us as a lesbian couple.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it always goes back to communication, and that's something I never had in any of my other relationships, but having it in ours, it opens your eyes to like even just being able to say like that's not something I'm okay with. Where do you stand with it? And like putting it all out on the table, whether it's like uncomfortable or not. And then, me being able to openly tell you, like, I want to respect you being non binary and girlfriend's no longer comfortable, but like, how do I still get to show the world that I'm a lesbian and then
Mm-hmm.
have that same communication and respect back? That's really what it all comes down to. Like you have to be with somebody that you can talk to about things and be
Mm-hmm.
able to be honest and like say what do you want, what do you not want? Don't settle, because that's how you end up in positions that I found myself in. When you say, "Oh, well, I'll put that thought and feeling of my own aside."
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not fair.
Right. Yeah. I
You have to do what feels right for yourself, but also like in your relationship, you have to say that out loud.
Yeah, and I know how important it is for both of us to have our own identities
Mm-hmm.
and to hold on to that and to have passion around it and to hold it up, and as a shield or a trophy or whatever it might you at whatever you might want to use it for that day. um and I'm 100% okay with being called a lesbian, a wife, a woman loving woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with all of that. I personally don't feel connected to the word girl or
What was it yesterday? One of our kids asked if you were okay with ma'am, and you were like, "Not shut that shit down real quick."
yeah.
Like it all goes back to personal preference, and you
Yeah.
have to be able to speak your mind to your person and say that I'm okay with, that I'm not, and maybe you don't understand it, and that's okay, but this is just how I feel. And the other interesting part of it too is that like we were talking about the top surgery thing,
Mm-hmm.
I would so be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me that wouldn't affect anything. So it's kind of like, where do you draw the line for who and when, and it's I think it's so case by case.
Yeah, and I think it's really, really healthy that we have the level of communication that we have to be able to have the conversations openly with our listeners, but also privately around topics like top surgery. When there's moments where I'm unsure and I'm like, this week I want to get top surgery. Next week I might not want to get top surgery. And that's why I will keep talking about it back and forth to help me understand and learn about it, what it means for me, what it means for us. And, at this stage, like, it's no longer a real priority to me. I have other priorities in place that are more about my healing journey and my mental health. And I don't feel that top surgery adds any value to my transition. And I'm saying transition because non binary falls under the umbrella of trans.
Mm-hmm.
And you do transition when you go from identifying as a
She, her
she,
to they,
her to
them.
they, them.
Yeah. And I
So
think that's where people kind of hit that like slippery slope of like I said, where does the line.
because with certain people, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but with certain people, in order for a person to comprehend, there has to be like this end point. And that is what is so spiritual when it comes, that's what makes non-binary so spiritual, is when like there is no end point. You're not attached to a gender. You're so far away from it. You're able to feel and be free in
Right.
a way that a binary person is not going to always understand.
When you explained it to me like that, I was like, damn, I kind of wish I knew what that felt like.
I'm telling you, when you were
Like, just
talking
to be a
about like
creature, just to be a human.
you were talking about me kind of stripping away, like being the most natural I've
Like the
ever
most
been.
naked version of yourself.
No, I haven't worn makeup in 2 years, maybe a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah, it's probably been about a year. Yeah.
Like no makeup, no like dressing for the thought of um attracting. Like I like being like you telling me like, "Oh my god, you look so good today," but not feeling like when you're dressing in a how do I explain this? When I was dressing femme as a straight woman, I was dressing to please others. I was not dressing for anyone. I was not dressing for myself. I was dressing for
Well, and
everybody
you weren't
else.
dressing for comfort.
Right.
That's a huge part of it.
But I think when people think dressing for comfort, it's almost like, hey, it's pajama day, right?
Right.
But like you can have style and be like comfort is not just like sweatpants and hoodie. Comfort's a style too.
Yeah. Well, and I'm talking about like even down to like materials. Like women that wear certain materials that you know that shit's not comfortable, but you're going to wear it anyway because you know that it attracts
Yeah,
the
y'all
male
are never gonna see
gaze.
me in a pair of nylons ever again. Like, I don't know if that was just something like us elderly millennials grew up with, but
Nylons.
like pantyhose, then tight ass shit like that, or like when you wear that one piece bodysuit thing, hell to the nah, we are not wearing that anymore.
Yeah. I still own some little lacy things, and
I
every time I wear them, Kirby's like, "How do you do that?"
But even like I've worn Spanx, after a couple
Yeah.
delivering having babies or whatever, and your body changes, and you're just like, oh my god, what am I going to do with all this extra skin for the time being or whatever? And like I've worn Spanx. I will wear the shit out of a binder and flatten my chest out even more, but like you're not getting me in anything tight anywhere else.
Yeah. No,
Just the
you
binder.
like the comfort. Yeah.
I don't know though. I think going back to transitioning, let's be clear too, and it's medically transitioning. I am not looking to medically transition. I think in life, you should naturally want to transition. You should want to evolve and learn and grow. And so for me, transitioning is allowing myself to break free from something very black and white and expand even further outside of the realms of male and female and feel 100% comfortable and natural in my own skin and not have to justify it or explain it to anybody other than asking for some compassion when I say, hey, my preferred pronouns are they, them. Please respect that. I get it. People have a hard time adjusting to it, but really, the more often you do it, the easier it gets. So, like, if you have somebody in your life that is saying, like, hey, my pronouns are these, just keep trying.
Mhm.
Keep trying, keep doing it. Do it with other people too. If you don't physically know this person or they're not in your life every day, start referring to them as they them because like you should never assume anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, just to tie it up, I mean, I think that like the question itself was if you were to come to me now, because it did take us a while to come out. It took us a while to realize so many things. And let's just say you did realize after the fact and you came to me now and said transitioning was something you'd be thinking about. I think that's what the original question actually was.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you when this original question came up that like now that I have already fallen in love with you and I am here as a unit, as your best friend, as all of the things that we have become, would there be a part of me that would be like, okay, I can put my own feelings aside? Yes. My fear in saying that, though, is that eventually there would be resentment
And that's
because
common.
it's
That's
just
so common.
like a straight couple when one wants kids and one doesn't, and the one that wants kids is like, fine, I'll just put that aside for a while. Eventually those feelings are going to come back up. And like you said earlier, we've known people who have done just that, and it's like, all right, I'll push my stuff aside because I love you and because I want to support you, but eventually like the shit that you push down is going to rise. So like,
Yeah, I think it's common for when you're a lesbian couple and your person decides to medically transition to a man, I think over time, from some of the conversations that I've had or the things I've,
Heard.
heard, dug
Mm-hmm.
into online, looking on TikTok and in the comments of people or heard, yeah, there is a struggle where all of a sudden the person that remained a lesbian no longer feels like they are in, like, where do you categorize yourself now? Because when you go out in public or the way you're perceived by the world, and maybe it doesn't matter to some people, but some couples I think struggle with it
Oh,
when
I
all of a
know
sudden
some
they go
people
out
struggle with it.
and they say, address the couple as a man and woman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for some people, that might not matter at all. But for me, like I said, coming out being such a fight for me, I don't ever want to be seen as a straight couple. Call me crazy, but that's just the way that it is, for my own preference. So,
It makes me curious if people who transition from assigned birth of a female to a man, um, do you still feel like you want to be identified as a queer couple,
right.
straight couple? Is it that you long for the feeling of what it feels like to be, respected and treated like a straight couple? Because let's be real, when we go out, like, we are looked at differently.
Oh, yeah. And like we were talking about earlier, as a trans man, does it feel demasculating knowing that you're with a woman who is openly attracted to women? When you are in a relationship with a lesbian, you are
Mm-hmm.
saying, I am in a relationship with a woman who is openly attracted to women, yet I have gone away from that and transitioned into a man. Does that feel demasculating to you?
Mm-hmm.
That you are now openly in a relationship with someone who clearly wants to be with women? That's like our ex husbands asking them, you know? That's how I compare those two things.
What if, just like throw a little wrench in there, what if our ex-husbands would have been like, I will transition and become a woman if you stay. I'm just, don't make that face. You guys see this face right now. If Jeff would have said, I will transition and do all of the surgeries and become a woman,
Oh God.
would that have changed things?
I'm gonna need some time to think about that. Stay tuned for next week. I'll have an answer. I have no idea. I have no idea. I've never thought about that. My immediate answer is no. It's not the same. But then I think
Because, like,
yeah.
I will say, like, when I was early on starting to come out non-binary, starting to come out openly, lesbian, and that took me a long time to say because I just was like, well, I'm a bisexual, I've been with men, I can't even claim that word. When I was finally starting to claim what I identify with, there were conversations, I think maybe even more so just like lighthearted jokes where Tommy would be like, only if I was a woman, right? Like,
Yeah.
only if I could be a woman too. Because we had a good relationship, we had a healthy relationship. Was everything in our relationship perfect? No. And I
Never
think
is.
seeing the side that I know now from emotional intelligence, level of ability to have true, like, empathy, um, and connection, even if Tommy would have transitioned to a woman, I don't think the deeper side of the qualities that I wasn't receiving, like, the type of connection that I have with you. Now, am I saying that I would have that connection with every single woman? Absolutely not, but I don't think I would ever be able to achieve it. Even if Tommy medically transitioned, they cannot rewire that part of his brain.
Right. Right. I agree with that completely.
And that to me is like
Well,
one of the
and
biggest roles of, like, a woman loving woman relationship is the level of connection and that
exactly.
and sharing those deep feelings and wanting
That's
to dive
half of
deep.
the attraction in a lesbian relationship, in my
100%.
opinion. That is
100%.
maybe even more than half of the attraction is the emotional connection.
Yeah, because, like, you can ugly cry all day and I'm gonna so, like, sit down and be like, let's talk feelings and be attracted and love you, because that is, like, I'm emotionally attracted to that type of energy of, like, bringing comfort and security and love.
But
And
then let's reverse the roles, because then it makes you think about going back to transitioning. as a woman transitioning to a man, you don't lose those qualities either. You don't lose your emotional intelligence. You don't lose, unless,
Mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah,
I
no.
say that lightly though, because I've also heard a lot. This is the part of it that I'm not very educated on. I've heard a lot of stories from people I've been friends with or acquaintances with where, like, when you do start transitioning and you are continuously taking tea,
Testosterone.
then it does change you.
Yeah, you are more irritable. You have maybe just more built up, pent up frustration. Sometimes you have to get it out. And yeah, I think
There's so many, like, and that's why I just go back to, like, it's so case by case, and there's just this general question of where does the line get drawn. It doesn't, because it's all about your individual preferences, all of it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because, like, you could just keep diving and going and questioning, and there's just so many different winding roads to the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think, when people are curious whether or not I am going to medically transition, if you just can hear me out for a minute, I love my trans community, absolutely love and respect my trans community. I personally have never felt a desire to become a man. That is nothing. I don't. I will sometimes make a joke and be like, oh, my 5 o'clock shadow or something, like, let me get a beard, because beards are hard to grow. But I don't have a desire to identify and pull off being a man. I don't. And personally, for me, right now in my life, and I am not saying, I know I'm wearing like my shirt that says
So
feminine
fitting.
is
Did
for
you plan
everyone.
that?
No, I just felt like wearing it today. Um uh feminine blah, blah, blah. I cannot speak today.
Feminism is for
Yeah,
everybody.
feminism is for everybody. Remember that. No, I struggle right now with fully respecting men and wanting to interact and be any type of um like it's hard for me. I'm going to say that right now. It is hard for me, especially with everything going on in the world. And maybe you're completely blind or deaf from everything that's going on in the world, and you're just like, I have no idea. Because actually, I did ask somebody at work, like, have you been listening to all this shit coming out about P Diddy? And they were like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Wow.
And I was like, how the hell? And they were like, because it doesn't involve me. And I was like, well, you have children, so it kind of does, because you need to know what's going on in this world. And it's not just with P Diddy. Like, that is just the fucking tip of the iceberg. There are so many things, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But what I'm going to say is, like, right now, I, like a lot of people, where they're like, I choose bear over man, because, like, your chances of getting attacked by a bear are like way less than getting attacked by a man. So, like, I I don't want to say like I hate men. I don't want to say that, but I'm struggling right now with feeling comfortable around men
Mm-hmm.
in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel any type of connection or and some type of, like, I don't know, just
I think part of it goes back to when you come out and you step into your own masculinity as a fresh new baby lesbian, you realize that you don't need men the way that you always programmed yourself to think you did. And it's a learning curve of, like, now where do they fit in?
mhm.
Because our whole lives we've put them on this, like, this is why I need a man in my life.
This is the end all.
And then you
Like,
kick that
right?
stool out from underneath it, and it's like, all these reasons that I thought I needed a man, gone. So now what do I need them for? Why are they here? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm right there with you. I don't hate men, but why do I need them?
And I feel horrible even saying or thinking that, because here we have 8 boys that will
It sounds
someday and
awful.
soon, like, are men, right? And so we're trying to raise them in a very open-minded space where there's not this duality to it, where it's boys are this way, girls are this way, women are this way, men are this way. But we're trying to say, you can be this way.
Right.
You can witness us being this way. You can learn from this, and
You
you
can
can
be any way you want
be
to.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
But this idea that, like, the final level, the top tier, The pedestal is where the man sits, and that's what like now Kirby is saying they're a masculine non-binary lesbian, so they must want to be a man. No,
Yeah.
that's not where I'm already past, like I've like catapulted myself over into this deep fucking rainbow of like pure, just one with my soul. Like I'm
Fluidity.
like fluidity. Yes, I'm very very fluid in like, yes, I'm masculine. I've always been masculine. I've always had this fucking type of outfit. And I've had stages of long hair and short hair. You probably didn't know me then, maybe in that phase of my life, but
Some of you did,
I
though.
have taken years to express my style, and I've landed here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I am, and this is where I'm comfortable with, and um 100% okay with people outside of our home seeing us as two women, because you know what? To be a lesbian is a pretty fucking amazing thing. So I'll take it.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is that, like, I would never hold you back from doing what you wanted to do. So, and I think that's important to say as well, is that, like, just because there would be that resentment or something like that, it would never want me to hold you back from being who you were. And yeah, just respect your person and your relationship. And I think if you want the best for them, then you'll want them to be their truest self. And it's all you can do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it feels good to be loved for me, for
yeah,
just who I am, where I am today, and where that leads me.
same.
Bye.